The Zalrek Dominion had conquered dozens of worlds. Their fleet, a vast armada of warships and planetary siege engines, had never known true resistance. High Warlord Cathan stood aboard the bridge of his flagship, gazing at the pale blue planet before him. Humanity. A species barely worth noting. Their technology was primitive, their fleet laughable, their bodies weak. Intelligence reports suggested they still waged war among themselves, fractured by petty differences. They were nothing more than an inconvenience. Cathan turned to his advisors. Send the transmission. The message was simple: surrender immediately, or be erased. Moments later, a reply came through, text only. No plea for mercy. No desperate negotiations. Just one sentence. Surrender. You really don't understand what you've done, do you? Cathan narrowed his eyes. Arrogance. Typical of lesser species who didn't grasp the futility of resistance. He dismissed it as bravado. Tactical officers reported no widespread panic, no mass evacuations. Instead, Earth's defenses were activating. Military assets were mobilizing with unsettling precision. Satellites realigned, missile silos opened, stealth bombers vanished from radar. Humans weren't fleeing. They were preparing. Cathan scoffed. Let them struggle. They'll break soon enough. He ordered the first wave. Zalrek shock troopers descended in dropships, targeting key cities. Standard protocol: overwhelm defenses, crush resistance, force capitulation. As the first transports entered the atmosphere, Cathan watched the feeds. He expected chaos, terror, the screams of civilians scattering like frightened prey. But the streets were empty. No mass exodus. No disorder. Just silence. Then the signals began to cut out. One by one, the first dropships touched down in perfect formation, dispersing squads of Zalrek shock troopers. Their armor was impenetrable to conventional weaponry, their energy rifles capable of reducing organic matter to ash. They expected resistance, but nothing prepared them for what came next. The silence shattered. The first squad vanished without a trace. No distress calls, no sounds of battle, just static. Then came the snipers. High-caliber rounds punched through Zalrek helmets, finding weak points no enemy should have known existed. Those who took cover were struck down by unseen drones. Their bodies were dragged away before their comrades could react. Explosions ripped through the streets. EMP bursts knocked out energy shields, leaving the invaders vulnerable. Automated turrets, seemingly inactive, came to life and tore through entire squads. Supply routes collapsed. Command signals jammed. The Zalrek were being dissected with surgical precision. A captured soldier managed to send one final transmission before his signal was cut. His voice trembled. They don't fight like any species we've faced. They aren't defending. They're hunting us. Psychological warfare set in. Distorted human voices infiltrated their comms. Whispered taunts, eerie laughter. Base camps were raided in the dead of night, leaving only bloodstains and empty armor. Sleep deprivation broke morale. Zalrek troopers refused to rest, haunted by the sounds of unseen enemies moving in the dark. Cathan watched helmet cam footage from one of his commanders. A patrol entered a ruined district, scanning for survivors. A lone human stood in the street, unarmed, staring at them. Before the troopers could react, the human smirked. A single word crackled through the comms. Run. The feed cut to black. Cathan ordered full-scale orbital bombardment. If humans refused to surrender, he would erase their cities from existence. But the moment his warships targeted the surface, everything went wrong. Targeting systems failed. Fleet AI went offline. Weapons locked onto their own ships. The humans had hacked them. Entire cruisers turned against the Armada, firing on Allied forces before self-destructing. Planetary defense systems, once thought primitive, pinpointed weaknesses in Zalrek armor and struck with unerring accuracy. On the ground, the nightmare worsened. The humans weren't just fighting, they were adapting. Zalrek soldiers adjusted tactics, only for humans to counter within hours. Ambush sites became death traps, supply lines collapsed, retreat paths were cut off. Even civilians fought. Wounded men detonated explosives as enemies approached. Elderly women rigged buildings to bury entire squads alive. Children lured soldiers into sniper fire. Captured prisoners showed no fear. Torture yielded nothing but cold stares and defiant grins. One captive, bleeding from multiple wounds, chuckled through cracked teeth. "You think this is bad? We haven't even started." Moments later, a hidden explosive beneath his chair vaporized the entire interrogation team. Zalrek forces tried to retreat, but humanity didn't let them go. They didn't just defend, they pursued. They hunted. They learned how Zalrek ships operated, hijacked them, turned them into weapons. What was once a planetary invasion became an extermination. Cathan received one final transmission from his forces on the ground. No video. Just a single, shaking voice. "They don't die like normal soldiers. They don't stop. A scream. Then silence." A new message came through. Human command. Just one word. Run. The retreat was a massacre. Zalrek ships scrambled for orbit, but the humans had already anticipated their movements. Their own hijacked vessels turned against them, cutting down retreating forces with ruthless precision. Some ships made it past the chaos, only to be picked off by stealth bombers that shouldn't have been capable of reaching them. Cathan watched as his once mighty armada was reduced to debris. He barely escaped. A handful of ships, scarred and broken, limped back to the Dominion. But there would be no reinforcements, no counterattack. The ruling council refused to believe his reports. Humanity, they claimed, could not have done this. It was impossible. Then the retaliation began. Human hunter-killer teams infiltrated Zalrek colonies, erasing entire settlements overnight. Communications failed, orbital defenses shut down, and when the attacks came, they left no survivors. Other empires, once fearing the Dominion, now whispered of humanity instead. Ambassadors rushed to offer peace before it was too late. Cathan, stripped of command, recorded a final message. A warning to any who would dare challenge Earth. He spoke of a species that did not surrender, did not fear, and did not forget. A species that became the monsters they fought. His message was intercepted. Humanity's reply was brief. "Good. Remember that." And the galaxy did.